Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce the 60th Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, Lieutenant General Darryl A. Williams. All right, sir. Stand for a second.
The first captain. First captain. First captain.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right.
All right. First captain. Sergeant Major, I was going to fire them up. They're already fired up, man. Distinguished guests, fellow members of the Long Gray Line and the Corps of Cadets, welcome to West Point, and thank you all for being here for this evening's presentation of the 2019 Alexander R. Nininger Award for Valor at Arms. Tonight, we honor an outstanding leader from the Long Gray Line, one who has displayed extraordinary valor and courage in the crucible of ground combat and exemplifies that fighting spirit of this award's namesake, Captain Lindsay Gordon Heisler from the class of 2012. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Lindsay. All right, yeah, give her. Lindsay, go ahead. I told you I was going to make you nervous. Lindsay, welcome back to your alma mater, and we're honored to have you here with us. I'd like to acknowledge Lindsay's family and guests joining us this evening. Her husband, Captain John Heisler, commander of Bravo Troop 117th Cavalry Squadron, 82nd Combat Aviation Brigade. Oh, John, thanks for being here. Her parents, Doug and Mary Lee Gordon. Her grandfather, Major General retired Robert Gordon. Her uncle, David Gordon, and his guest, Kathy O'Gara. Her uncle and Uncle Harry, her aunt and Uncle Harry and Susan Baldacini and cousin Evan. John's parents, Lieutenant Colonel retired Terry and Jerry Heisler. His grandmother, Mrs. Judy Droege. Also joining us this evening are Lindsay's former brigade commander, Colonel Bernard Harrington, and her battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Brian Hummel. Thank you all for being here tonight. Let's all give them a round of applause. Also joining us here this evening is Miss Alice Gustafson, the fiance of the award's namesake, Lieutenant Nininger. She will turn 100 years old on December 15th. Let's give her a round of applause. Courage. The history of our Army and the history of our nation is replete with examples of valor and courage, both physical and moral, and especially courage in ground combat. And for as many examples of courage we find throughout history, we also find almost as many definitions of courage. Von Clausewitz calls courage the first quality of a warrior, while Napoleon says that courage isn't having the strength to go on, but rather it's going on when you don't have the strength. General Omar Bradley called it the capacity to perform properly even when scared half to death. And General Dunwoody, who sat here just a few weeks ago, whom we honored here as this year's Thayer Award recipient, defines courage as doing the right things for the right reasons. There are many excellent definitions of courage, and I also would offer this one. Courage is a decision to put yourself in harm's way, a decision to put the welfare of others ahead of yourself. It's the decisions you make when you're afraid that define courage. Those words were spoken a few years ago by Colonel Craig Aliyah, then brigade commander for the 101st Combat Aviation Brigade, in describing the courageous and heroic actions of Captain Lindsay Heisler and her fellow pilot, Chief Warrant Officer David Woodward, in December of 2015. Courage under fire, facing and overcoming fear and adversity, putting others before yourself. These are among the core qualities that shape who we are and who we strive to be as soldiers and members of the profession of arms. Qualities and principles we find in our Army values and our warrior ethos. Qualities that enable us to not only endure, but to persevere and win. And tonight, it is a privilege to honor one of our own from the long gray line who epitomizes those qualities and embodies West Point's values of duty, honor, and country. A member of the class of 2012, Lindsay majored in physics, House of Pain. Majored in physics, House of Pain. Okay, all right, okay. It's better. And was a 4-year letter winner in women's soccer who excelled both in the classroom and on the soccer field. Her team won the Patriot League championship twice, both title victories coming against Navy. Sorry, Major. Come on now. I'm gonna try this again. Both title victories coming against Navy. All right. Okay. In a little over a month, on December 14th, Lindsay will have the honor of flying over at the Army-Navy game with another Nininger Award winner. Let's give her a round of applause for that. Lindsay was also a 3-time Patriot League Honor Roll recipient as well. Interestingly, her class motto was "for more than ourselves," words that no doubt helped shape her as a leader and a warrior. After flight school and qualifying as an Apache helo pilot, she reported to the 101st Aviation Regiment, serving as a Company XO and then as a platoon leader, where she deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operations Freedom, Sentinel, and Resolute Support. It was there, in December 2015, serving as an AH-64 co-pilot and gunner, that she flew a mission with Chief Woodward to extract a Ranger unit engaged in a firefight with enemy forces along the Afghan-Pakistani border. Reaching the objective area, Lindsay engaged the enemy insurgents, and then she and Woodward positioned the helicopter between the Ranger unit and the insurgents, taking on enemy fire and drawing fire away from the Rangers while they were being extracted to safety. The Ranger Unit Commander would later report, "In my 20 years of service, I've never been pulled from a more dire situation." For her actions, Lindsay, as well as Chief Woodward, would receive the Distinguished Flying Cross for her decision-making, courage under fire, and bravery, which were critical to the success of the unit's mission. A decision to put yourself in harm's way, to put the welfare of others ahead of yourself, that's courage. More than an intangible inner quality, courage is an action. And that's what we honor and celebrate tonight, the courage and the actions of Captain Lindsay Heisler, a warrior and a leader of character. Lindsay, you are an inspiration to all of us, and we are proud and grateful for your service to our nation, our Army, and our soldiers. So on behalf of the entire West Point team and the Corps of Cadets, congratulations. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my teammate, President and CEO of the West Point Association of Graduates, Mr. Todd Brown, class of 1985. Thank you.
Okay, let's hear it for our soup. General Williams, distinguished guests and members of the Corps Cadets, your West Point Association of Graduates is honored to present this year's Nininger Award during the 150th anniversary of our association to Captain Lindsay Gordon Heisler, class of 2012. This award was endowed by the late Doug Kenna, class of 1945, and his wife, Jean. Although Mrs. Kenna is not able to join us tonight, I would like to recognize them as the benefactors of this prestigious award. The Nininger Award joins the Thayer and the Distinguished Graduate Awards as the third major award presented by our Association of Graduates. The Thayer and Distinguished Graduate Awards focus on a lifetime of service to the nation. The Nininger Award, named in honor of Alexander R. Nininger, class of 1941, Medal of Honor recipient, who's described in your program, reflects uncanny heroism, courage, and character while serving in the profession of arms. Captain Heisler demonstrated leadership, courage, and moral ethical excellence in her heroic actions in Bagram, Afghanistan, in support of Operation Freedom Sentinel, subsequently receiving the Distinguished Flying Cross. She is a most worthy representative of all West Point graduates who have led soldiers in battle. Let's hear it again for Captain Heisler. Members of the Corps and guests, it is now my privilege to present the 2019 Nininger Award for Valor at Arms to Captain Lindsay Gordon Heisler, class of 2012.
the first captain. Lieutenant General and Mrs. Williams, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, distinguished guests, and the Corps cadets, good evening and thank you for this great honor. Let me begin by saying this is absolutely surreal to me. I remember sitting in your shoes years ago, and now I can confidently say that in the not so distant future, one of you will be up here speaking to the Corps cadets. I am truly humbled by this experience. Before I talk about the night of December 5th, 2015, I would like to recognize CW3 Dave Woodward, who unfortunately cannot be here tonight. Dave was my platoon instructor pilot at the time, who mentored and groomed me into a pilot in command and air mission commander of the Apache helicopter. He was the most competent pilot in the aircraft and the one from whom I learned the most. He was with me the night of December 5th, and there is no doubt that Dave is the reason that every American survived. I would like to use that night to convey the importance of two things: preparation and teamwork in combat, because ultimately it was those two things that brought every American home that night. In December 2015, at Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan, I was a platoon leader and pilot in command of the Apache helicopter. Our attack reconnaissance company had been deployed for 8 months at that point. During the previous 8 months, we had developed into a very tightly knit team. Combat has a way of doing that. Every night, we flew air assault security missions with Chinooks from 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, carrying friendly forces across Afghanistan to capture or kill high-value targets. By the 8th month of our deployment, we had also developed a great working relationship with the Chinook crews and the ground forces we worked with. I could not have asked for a better team to be a part of. On the night of December 5th, we were told a high-value target had been identified in Paktika province in southeastern Afghanistan in a target building just 30 meters from the eastern border with Pakistan. The terrain at this location had mountains surrounding it to the north, to the west, and to the south, with open desert to the east in Pakistan. The mountains provided great vantage points for inner visibility of the valley. Chinooks from the 160th were going to drop a group of Rangers to capture or kill the high-value target. Other than the target being right alongside the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, there was nothing out of the ordinary about this mission. It was something we had done nightly for the previous 8 months. Our attack weapons team took off soon after notification to conduct armed escort of the helicopter assault force. We flew en route to the landing zones and successfully dropped the Rangers to the X at the target building. The Chinooks left for refuel, and my 2 Apaches stayed overhead for air support. About 2 to 3 hours after infill, we identified an enemy fighting position, observing the friendly forces. We immediately called it up and received clearance to engage from the ground force. Now, even after this engagement, this did not seem like any mission too out of the ordinary. We were closing in on 6 hours of flight time, and it was close to 6 o'clock in the morning, so sunrise was quickly approaching. Now, because it is safer at night for the ground force to operate than during the daytime, the ground force commander called for pickup of his forces to return to base. The Rangers moved into PZ posture, which is where they set up in a defensive position near the pickup zone so that they can quickly load up into the Chinook. This minimizes the aircraft's exposure to enemy fire while sitting on the ground. The enemy, after almost 15 years of conflict at that point in time, had learned that PZ posture is when the ground force is most vulnerable. They also learned that whenever friendlies are in PZ posture, helicopters are about to land to pick them up. Once in PZ posture, the ground force radioed to us that they were taking indirect fire from an unknown location to the north. We immediately shifted our sensors to the north and began scanning for mortar positions. I found a 6-man team just beyond a fence line that was engaging the ground force while they're in their most vulnerable state. I received clearance to fire and quickly engaged the enemy. Even after this second engagement, had the ground force returned to base at this point in time, it would have been a mission with nothing too out of the ordinary. Now, another key piece of knowledge the enemy had learned after almost 15 years of conflict is that the Apache helicopter, what they refer to as the Dragon, can easily find people using the FLIR in our target acquisition systems. Their tactic to counter this is to hide themselves and their weapon systems completely out of sight, either in a building, under blankets, or inside of thick vegetation, until they hear the loud, unmistakable sound of Chinook helicopters flying to pick up a ground force. The rotor noise of the Chinook is a terrorist cue to move into their fighting positions in order to have the best chance at shooting down a helicopter. They hid from us as long as they could until they knew the Chinooks were about to land. The Chinooks were release point inbound, meaning they were just seconds out from landing. We were overhead conducting aerial security when suddenly curtains of enemy fire from all directions, including the east from inside of Pakistan, pinned the ground force and the Chinooks on the ground. We had enemy RPG and heavy machine gun fire originating from high points on the mountains to the west, from an area concealed by trees to the north, and from collat structures to the south and to the east from inside of Pakistan. I had never seen anything like it before in my entire life. Dave and I had no time to think, we just reacted. Dave, flying the aircraft, maneuvered our aircraft between the friendlies and the enemy in order to draw fire to ourselves rather than to the ground force, while I acquired targets in my sensors. Wherever I saw the fire originating from, I fired back. Our wingman radioed over to us that they had taken fire and were having hydraulic issues. The Chinook Air Mission Commander radioed that they had taken battle damage, but that he thought they could still fly it home. We were able to keep the enemy's heads down just long enough for the Chinooks to find a window to take off and get out of there. We continued engaging until the Chinooks had radioed to us that they were all wheels up and en route back to the base. We verified the PZ was clean, linked up with our wingman who had stable hydraulic pressure to fly home, and escorted the flight of Chinooks back to the FOB. What had just transpired felt like a century when it all happened in the span of under 3 minutes. When we landed at the FOB, we found our wingman had taken battle damage to their tail boom. Still to this day, we are in disbelief that the rounds didn't hit their tail rotor, which would have likely caused a crash landing within enemy territory. The Chinooks sustained battle damage to the rotor systems. We didn't realize it at the time, but after we debriefed, the crew of an ISR aircraft overhead of the objective area identified a total of 8 enemy Dishka fighting positions once they watched their tape after they landed. A Dishka is a heavy machine gun that is a terrorist weapon of choice to shoot down low-flying aircraft. With 8 of them surrounding the valley, we were all extremely lucky to return safely to the FOB that day. The ground force commander stated that in his 20 years of service, he had never been pulled from a dire situation. There are 2 main takeaways I would like you all to remember after hearing that story. The first one is to understand the importance of preparation. You need to prepare every day to ensure that you are ready for when you are called upon to do your job when it matters the most. When all of you in here become platoon leaders, it will be your job to prepare your platoon for combat. Don't allow yourself to have it on your conscience that you could have done more to ensure that your platoon is prepared to take the fight to the enemies of the United States. Dave and I did not question our actions on the night of December 5th. We acted instinctively and decisively because we were prepared and we are confident in our training. Make sure you have done everything you can to prepare your platoon for when you are called upon. The second thing I would like you all to take from this is the importance of teamwork. Understand that when you become platoon leaders, it is not about you. Your job is not to figure out how you will be successful, but rather it is to figure out how to make every soldier of your platoon successful. When you fly in combat in support of a ground force, your job is to support the ground force's scheme of maneuver to enable them to accomplish their mission. It is not about you. On December 5th, my team and I understood the mission was not about us flying our aircraft. It was about ensuring the Chinooks accomplished their mission, that the ground force accomplished their mission, and that every American returned to the FOB safely. Lastly, thank you to my friends and family who are present tonight, and thank you to the West Point Association of Graduates and the Corps of Cadets for your attention this evening. Go Army, beat Navy, go women's soccer, beat Lehigh. Thank you.
Captain Heisler, on behalf of the Corps of Cadets, thank you for making the time to travel to West Point to receive the Nininger Award. Your courage and perseverance in battle is an inspiring example for all of us. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to present you with this Cadet Saber on behalf of the Corps of Cadets. Please remain standing for the benediction by Chaplain Moeller.
God, as we depart this evening, remain with us and revive us all with life, love, and liberty. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Nininger Award presentation ceremony. Beat Navy, Corps dismissed.